From here starts the speaking test. This is the speaking mock test of the International English Language Testing System taking place online in Ross IELTS Academy. The candidate is Anna. The candidate number is 01313456. The examiner is Luisa Mainos, examiner number 443577. Good afternoon. My name is Luisa. Would you please tell me your full name?
Good evening. My full name is Anna Popova. You can call me Anna or Anuta if you want to.
Thank you so much. Okay, then let's get started with part 1. In the first part of the exam, I will ask you some personal questions. Let's talk about your neighborhood. Where are you living right now?
I was living and grew up in the house next to the Black Sea. It was a very exciting time which I was spending with my friends, and also neighbors was very kind and kindness to me, and I think that one of them like my family.
Do you like the area that you live in?
Yeah, I'm living in Odessa. It's a city which based on Black Sea. But now I don't like this street in which I'm living now, because it's so industrial and noisy in the morning, because my windows I'm looking at road every morning, and it's really annoying me, because I used to live next to the park. It was very beautiful to listen birds and sound the flowers. It was great.
What can be improved in the area that you live?
Um, I think that the local government is going to improve roads, because when I'm driving, I can see that we have a repair works here, and I think we have a good roads later.
Now let's talk about getting up early. Do you often get up early in the morning?
Yes, I think I'm a lot, and usually I get up at 5:30 a.m.
What's your morning routine?
Oh, thank you. It's a great question. When I woke up, I enjoy praying to the God for 15 minutes, probably. After that, I am taking a shower, and I am brushing my teeth. After that, I am cooking, have breakfast, and preparing for work and go out.
What kinds of people usually get up early?
Mm. I think that children usually get up early, and when they are crying, their parents also get up early. I think teachers at universities, at the school, get up early, and doctors who are working in public hospitals.
Now let's move on to talk about sports. Did you do any sports when you were younger?
Yes, I used to do ballet dancing. I was a professional sportsman before, but I had difficult injuries. I injured my knee, and I retired my professional career when I was 15. And after that, I started the normal life. I was studying at school like my classmates. And after that, I was studying in university. I was doing all things that usually people in my age do.
Do you enjoy watching sport?
Yeah, I'm a big fan in figure skating, and when we have the pandemic situation with COVID-19, I was watching all translation in official website. on YouTube channel, and I was really excited because when I watched that translation, I let my hair down, and it was happiest time. I was really excited and relaxing when I remembered about that.
Great. So that's it for part one. Now we can move on to part two. So in part two, I will give you a card with a topic, and then you will have to talk about this topic for 2 minutes. You have 1 minute to think about what you're going to say, and you may take some notes to help if you wish. Do you understand?
Yeah, I am good.
Great. So you should talk about a fashion item that you want to buy. And your 1 minute of preparation starts now. All right, so your 1 minute is over. You may start speaking now.
All right. Yes, I very like fashion, and recently I have bought a coat. It has color, light color with artificial furs. I very like it, and it's been an offer for Halloween's Day. As a member of this boutique, I I received a special code which I downloaded, and after that I am buying this beautiful skirt, and I'm really glad that I'm have it. It was for my money, for my level of money, it was very expensive because I only started working, but it was a personal discount for me, and hopefully I bought it because it was a good management and a good prices for me. Only for 2 days, I have special proposition which I realized, and I am not keen on shopping because I think I like wearing classical style, some dresses, high heels, and if you know that classical things always will be actual, and time doesn't hurt them. And but when I have a mood, I bought.
Thank you. That's it. That's your 2 minutes. That's it for part two. Now we can move on to part three. So in part two, you described a fashion item that you want to buy. Now in this part, I want to ask you some questions that are related to this topic. What type of clothes do you like?
And now I enjoy wearing sneakers because it's very comfortable to running in not only in the park, and personal to visit informal meetings, or visit private parties with friends in clubs and cafes. I enjoy, as I had said before, I like wearing jewelries, and I also keep on my eyes, about sales, about preposition, and once in a while I bought it, and I have a collection, and I put all my jewelry in the right order.
How do people choose what style of clothing to buy?
Oh, thank you. It's very interesting question. I think that had been chosen by them probably from their mood, or from some tasted. I think young people enjoy wearing trousers, enjoy wearing jumpsuit. How I watch in my city, then they are watching, but they hardly ever they have dressed. Dresses or high heels. I think the classical style is only for middle-aged people. And nowadays everything has changed, and the sports style is very popular for people.
Why do some people buy brand name clothes?
I think that, in my opinion, they will buy global brands because it is famous, uh, and on the one hand, on the other hand, they give a credit to the designer who has created this cloth, and probably if they are working in like director in the private firms, on in the government, they need to buy expensive and famous clothes from brands, because they have to do that, because they are faces from the country, and people admire them, and they will be a role model for young people, for children, and they have a responsibility before people, and they do it because they have money, and they give a credit for Dior, probably, or Chanel, as is designers, I think.
Sometimes factory workers and very often school students have to wear uniforms. What do you think of this?
I My opinion is that uniform is a very good decision for people who doesn't have enough money to buy lots of clothes for children in their school times. And sometimes I think that when young pupils are wearing a uniform, it's kind of discipline. They understand that they have to do, and they understand that they don't have to do. And when they are doing it every day in a small age, they will be um, self-confident, and they will be responsible people later. And I think it's a good for schools. Sometimes also it's like advertisement from schools when the children are wearing uniform in my country, because they have special sign about in which schools was produced, and they have labels, and it also gives a credit for parents who are not sure about in which school their children need to be pupils, to join, need to
Okay.
be join.
Okay, thank you so much. This is the end of your test now.
Do you want to know what band score you'll get in the IELTS speaking test? Perhaps you want to improve your performance and prepare yourself for the real test? Then why not book an online mock test with us that will last for 25 minutes. 12 minutes of the test itself and 13 minutes of comprehensive feedback, plus we'll give you useful tips on how to make your performance better. Remember, all our examiners are especially trained by British Council instructors, so we know how to help you. Join us.
All right, great. So let's see how you did. Before I want to talk about the criteria. I want to give you a general idea of each of the parts and what it's all about, right? So as you heard before, part 1 is more personal questions. So there's no need to go into much detail in your answers. They're supposed to be rather short, maybe 3 or 4 sentences, depending on how long they are, right? So I think basically the length of most of your answers was fine. Maybe even cut them shorter a little bit, but you don't have to, talk about too many details there. Okay, and then part 2 is all about talking at length, right? So it's crucial that you cover your 2 minutes and that you cover all the bullet points that you see. So it's all about time management as well, right? So you didn't have any trouble covering the full 2 minutes. That was totally fine. You kept going there, so very good. And then part 3 is all about your coherent answers, right? You're supposed to develop your topic a little bit more than you did in part 1, for example. So your answers are longer than they were in that part. And, connecting your ideas, it's all about that. I think, again, the length here was fine that you had, you elaborated on whatever you were talking about. So that's very good. Okay, right. So let's move on to your criteria now. So as you heard before, probably your IELTS criteria that you're going to be judged on are your fluency and coherence, then your lexical resource, which is your vocabulary, then your grammar and accuracy, and lastly, your pronunciation. So I want to start with your fluency and coherence now. So what I really liked about your answers is that you always had an idea of what to talk about, right? So that's very important. You didn't have any struggles going on to talk about something. For example, in part 2, you easily covered the full 2 minutes. You even went, I noticed that you were kind of running out of ideas at first, but then you kept going. And that's very important. That's very good that you did that because, in part 2, you should keep talking until the examiner interrupts you. So that's totally fine what you did there. Okay, and you also, you used some of those your discourse markers. So for example, you use things like nowadays it's this and that, in my opinion, on one hand, on the other hand. Those were definitely great discourse markers that you used. So keep that up. That's a very good thing. You also had some connectives, so your linking words. You basically use those like basic ones like because, but, and, so also, those basic ones. So maybe in this case, you can try to bring in more variation. Just to give you an example, instead of saying and all the time, you can say additionally, further, besides. There's so many words that you can use instead of and that you can just kind of throw in there once or twice, and that can already like boost your fluency a little bit because you have the variation in linking words. Okay, and then what I also really liked about some of your answers to start off with, that's a great question. That's an interesting question. That's always a good kind of introduction almost to your sentence because you buy yourself these maybe valuable few seconds to think about what you're going to say, right? So that is definitely a good idea to start some of your answers like this. And then just a few hints. So I felt like some of your answers didn't match the questions exactly. For example, in the first question I asked about where you live right now, and then you started talking about where you used to live, right? I mean, you still said something that's important, right? However, just make sure that you pay very close attention to what tense the question asks for, and what the exact, what exactly it is. I mean, there's no task response really, it's not as important as in other IELTS, parts, but just keep in mind that you pay very close attention to what the question asks for, and especially what time it asks for, right? Because when I'm asking you, where do you live right now? Your answer should be, I am living in an apartment that is in, I don't know if it was Odessa, something like that, right? So just as a little hint. Okay, and I'm sorry, what was that?
It will be for future experience. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Okay. And then you still had, some hesitation here and there, especially, like sometimes you were looking for words, sometimes you were looking for things to say. You can always try to fill those pauses that you create there with just those little fillers. For example, things like, as I said before, actually, or what, or those little like expressions that you can put into your pauses to make it seem more fluent, even though you're pausing because you don't know what else to say or something, right? And then when you're having trouble finding a word, I mean, that also ties in already with your lexical resource. Try to find a different word. Don't look for one word for too long, because that will break off your fluency, right? Try to go into another direction,
Yeah.
And then just like a few little hints when you do have the feeling that you don't know what else to say, but you still want to go on with your answer. You can do different things. There are different techniques that you can use. For example, you can always go off topic. As long as you responded somehow to the question, you can go off topic and talk about something else that you have more knowledge about or something. Or you can always give more examples of a situation, of an event, whatever you were talking about. You can always give more details of what you were talking about. Or you can always lie. Nobody cares about the truth in IELTS. Just lie about whatever you're talking about. That's totally fine. All right. So that was a lot of talk about your fluency and coherence and everything. In the end, I gave you a 5 for your fluency and coherence. So let's move on to your lexical resource now. I did hear some very nice expressions that you use, some, less common, I would even say, things like "I let my hair down." I especially like that one. I am not keen on something, once in a while, hardly ever. They have, those are very nice expressions that you did use correctly, as a hint, because sometimes people try to use those more more complex structures just because they want to and they think it's going to boost their score. However, in those cases, do make sure that you use them in the correct way, because they will not help you if they're used in the wrong way, because that's just gonna mix up your sentence and nobody's gonna understand what you're trying to say, right? Those ones you did use correctly. Just as a general advice, make sure that when you use those idiomatic expressions, know how to do it correctly. And then I heard that you try to paraphrase once or twice, things like finding a different word with the same meaning, which is also very important for your IELTS, because like that you avoid repetition. For example, you said "I like," and then in the next sentence you said "I enjoy." That was very nice. So try to do that a little bit more often. So don't repeat your words too many times. Try to find different ones to express the same thing. Okay. As I said, you sometimes did that. You can try to do it even more often with some expressions that you maybe, comfortable with and you know how to. And that's just a lot about practice, Okay, so for your lexical resource, I also gave you a 5. Now moving on to your grammar and accuracy. So I did hear some different structures. For example, you used some relative clauses. You did have some compound sentences here and there. And you especially try to bring in a lot of different tenses. However, having said that, a lot of your tenses were a little bit mixed up. So I felt like you tend to use a lot of the ing form, like the gerund, right? But you didn't always use that correctly, so you should that's maybe something that you can work on, is your tenses, and to get them into the correct order, right? For example, you were talking about your morning routine, and you said "I'm brushing my teeth," but that would mean that you're doing it right now, which you're not, right? So in this case, you need to use your simple present. You say "I brush my teeth every morning." Right. So this is something that you, as I said, can work on, maybe to have your tenses correctly, and also especially when you're telling a story, that you don't mix them together. So for example, when you're telling a story that happened in the past, stick to the past tense. Or when you're talking about, in this case, an item of clothing that you want to buy, stick to the present tense. Or I mean, you can also use the future tense and be like, I will buy this next week or something, you know. But whatever tense you use, be sure to stick to the same one and not mix them together, because that just makes understanding more difficult in the end. Right? And then just as a little hint, some common mistakes are also in your grammar to your plural S. So, you know, when you have your noun and your plural, you need an S at the end. Then your third person S always gets lost in the process somehow. And you know, like matching your verbs to those. Okay. You know, so he, she, it needs an S at the end of the verb. Those are just some very common mistakes that you can also pay attention to when you're talking, as well as, for example, your articles. You know, sometimes when you're talking, you forget an A or a the somewhere because you're, I don't know, thinking about something else, or, you know, just forgot about it in that moment. You know, so those are the things that you can, you know, write down and pay attention to and try to avoid that overall, right? Okay, so I think your grammar is something that you can pay more attention to than the other criteria, maybe for now, and that's why I gave you a 4 here. Now moving on to your pronunciation. So I did hear that you were trying to, you know, have some intonation in there. You know, you're trying your little ups and downs in your voice. You had some kind of a melody. And you're also trying to have some you know, rhythm in there. So you're trying to connect your words or your sounds, you know. I think you can try to do that a little bit more, you know, especially connecting the sounds of your words together to make it seem more as a like overall melody when you're really talking, right? And I think you can also try to pronounce your words a little bit clearer, because sometimes I felt like you're mumbling a little bit here and there. So, you know, be sure to have a very clear pronunciation so everybody understands exactly what you're trying to say. Okay, but overall, I think, you know, it was very nice that you tried to have some intonation in there. So that was really good. And I gave you a 5 for your pronunciation. So overall, that would put you at a 5 for today.